Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video.
I want to do that.
We're working on the website. So we need to talk more about this because I think we can do this, Jeff. I really do. And it's a really awesome experience. I've got some people, a Native community. So we're going to do a lot of stuff with Native communities. So we'll actually be hearing the stories from actual Native descendants. And it's cool because I sat and watched this individual and their culture in southern Yucatan. I'm not going to say exactly where it's at here because I don't want people jumping off and taking the idea before we get this thing launched ourselves, right? But we actually get to go in. We can take quads in, but pretty much if there's a big group, we need to, all kind of pile in the back of a truck. We drive through the jungle and we go out to unexcavated archaeological sites. We're going to find the ruins. You're going to walk them just as they were when they left them, right? That the jungle is taken over. And these are still exposed. You can get in some because the tomb raiders have gone in and left openings. You can kind of climb in through where the tomb raiders have gone, and you're on your own. And you just find things like I've climbed in some tombs, and the old paintings were still there that were there for that individual, right? And you can kind of tell what type of person they were. And it's really interesting because you can see a lot. And maybe you're not going to find a lot of Book of Mormon evidence because in that area, it's more recent. You're probably going to go back maybe 600 to 800 years. But the archaeology there too, the archaeology, but the actual, what's the word I'm looking for? The style of construction was so detailed, Jeff, and made of stone that it's incredible even to see. And these are their temples. And I go there because I've gone back a few times now. And I go there and I say, look,
these are reminiscent of a civilized people. That's not the narrative that the Smithsonian wanted you to have, and wants you to have. Is that, these are civilized people and vast, connected peoples that
the whole Pateen Basin
trade.
You got cities of millions of people that live in various cities that connect by highways and roadways. Now you're going to have the same thing now in Ecuador, what they recently discovered, right?
So we know nothing about. Really.
In Ecuador, I'm going to pull this up here. I got a few notes here. I'm just going to pull up that I grabbed last night off this article. And I'll put a link down below here today too. Somebody wants to read more about this site in Ecuador.
I'm going to want to check. I'm going to want to grab that link and check it out.
Yeah. Here's basically what we're going to find out. So let's go back to here. I just got a few notes. I'm just got a few highlights I want to read here. All right, so let's go through here. I'm going to read this from an article that came out, and I think it's in Science Magazine or something of that nature. I'll put the link down below. Okay, the cluster of interconnected cities was only recently mapped in the Upano Valley of eastern Ecuador. A research team reported this month in the Journal of Science, working off decades of research on laser mapping technology. This is the LIDAR. This is the same thing they did over the Pateen Basin, and they're just, this is a laser that can just penetrate the actual jungle canopy and penetrate into the ground and basically reflect back anything that looks obstacles that may be built under the ground, right? Like stone and things of that nature, right?
Great technology. You can totally see under the canopy.
And with the technology called LIDAR, researchers were able to pierce the forest cover and map the ground below it, documenting, here we go, 5 major settlements in 10 secondary sites across more than 115 square miles. So we've got 5 major settlements in 10 secondary sites in this area. Now they're going to go on here, let's talk a little bit about this here. So radiocarbon dating found that these people lived here. You ready to buckle your seatbelt up? They lived here from around 500 BC to AD 300 and AD 600.
Wow. That's exactly the period of time.
Which would make the settlement some of the oldest found so far in diverse landscapes of the Amazon. Now, here's something interesting. Why don't you find those dates in the Pateen Basin amongst the Mayan cultures? Well, because every every period, every cycle, like 67 years, I don't remember exactly what it was, 57 or 67 years, they built over the existing buildings, right?
They build on top of themselves.
They build on top of themselves. So if you go down, you find it, right? You got to go underneath it all. So what you look at today, like in Palenque, if you would, or any of these ruins we're going to go to, those aren't the ruins that were left, as Joseph would say. And Joseph's talking about Palenque, actually, in Quirigua. Quirigua is in southern Guatemala, almost on Honduras border there. You know, those were the whole Catherwood and the Stevens and Catherwood writings, the artistry was done. The first people to document these ruins, these Americans, right? And this book comes out, and it sends to Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith will cite from this book, and he'll go on to say, facts are stubborn things, and he'll go on to say that these are the facts of the people that are written about in the Book of Mormon, right? Yeah. Now, some try to dispute that, well, Joseph wasn't present when that was published in Times and Seasons. And then President Nelson even had to come out and say that the rebuttal to that was, yeah, that's true. And we're still questioning on that. However, Joseph Smith never denied any of it. Right. Yeah. And he took full editorial responsibility for the Times and Seasons after 1840, 1841, something like that. He took full editorial responsibility, and he never came out and denied it. Where he did deny it prior, said there's things written that aren't doctrine, right?
Right. He had a history of denying, things that he didn't agree with. But
he did.
Was not one of them.
That was not one of them. And he talked extensively. Extensively, And so we'll do a Mexico City tour as well. Some people don't realize that there were a group of people that actually was with Moses that broke off and came over and settled around Mexico City. And Joseph explains that. So those things we sit down, we read, we do things, those kind of things in the evenings, and we spend time with doing some native shows, right? So you can see kind of like how they were, the dress, it's really interesting to see, boy, when they put on their war attire, it's actually like scripted from the Book of Mormon. I almost felt like they pulled the pages out of the Book of Mormon, how they dressed, right? The Lamanites. And so let's go back to this now. Let's go back to what we're talking about here. So we're talking about the carbon dating is going to go back to about 500, 300 years. Now, I don't have the most confidence in carbon dating. Okay.
Yeah, I don't either. But
there's a lot of room for error there. Okay.
It's a tool, and it's got some, maybe not accuracy, but it's helpful.
Now in this area down here, in this area in South America, are we going to find in that radius there, it's going to be too small of cities and to be the warring sanctions and so forth that exist. You're going to find now Serpentine Base. Now, here's what I feel. I feel you had North and South migrations, and Book of Mormon confirms that, right? And so you're going to have a southern migration. And I had suspected that we would find things, because if we could just drop down to northern Peru into Chachapoya and Cuelap is a ruin. They call it the new Machu Picchu, and they actually have a teleférico. They got the tram that goes up to it, where Machu Picchu doesn't, right? You got to take that bus up there still. And Machu Picchu gets, I don't know how many they get now. They were getting 60 to 80,000 a day when I went there. But I did a 4-day hike coming in from the backside. And unfortunately, I did one under the typical guiding. And at the time they had alternate routes that weren't, you didn't have to pay all the money. You could take your time on it. When you do that 4 day, it's a rough 4 days, man. They make you hike it, and it's tough. And, we decided to wear backpacks because my boys were working on the 50 mile at the same time. And that was a mistake. Hiking the Inca Trail with heavy backpacks on was not something I advise to anybody. Don't torture your kids that way. My poor kids did not enjoy that Inca Trail hike because they were carrying a backpack up the Himalayas, the Andean mountains, right? So here we go. So we're going to have this time frame. Here we go. The original construction was done by groups from the. This is what they're. Look, they've only discovered this a month ago. About a month ago, right? And so they're already coming out with all these conclusions. Give me a break. So research needs to be done, excavation needs to be done, but everybody's jumping on this, and they want to run with this as much as they can as well. So we got to be careful there, right? So you have I think it's the Quinomaupi and the later Upano cultures that had settled this city, right? Around between 800 to 1200, you're going to have the Papula culture then move in. So you have various cultures going to come through this city, right?
Yeah.
They've already excavated artifacts, including painted pottery, jugs, and the remains of traditional chicha. Chicha is a drink. It's still famous among the natives down there. Chicha. It's a corn-based drink.
Heard of it.
Yeah, it's alcoholic. You can drink chicha that's non-alcoholic too, but be careful of that because most of it's alcoholic. It's they ferment it, and they actually found that they found chicha still in a cup. It's actually there.
Right.
Here, Dr. Nesbitt added that although it's difficult to estimate the population of the ancient settlement, here we go. So this is why I'm going to say this was not a primary settlement of the Book of Mormon. However, it doesn't mean it was not a migratory settlement of people that once were of the Nephite civilization, right? Because you're going to see the city may have hosted as much as 30,000 people. We're going to need to find cities that hosted millions, right? If we're going to be Book of Mormon. So this doctor goes on and says, very exciting time to do archaeology, thanks to Leader. And it is an exciting time too, because it's just, to me, here's Jeff, I was just going to, I guess that's what I wanted to read on this here was that. And then I was going to say this in the Chachapoya area. The Chachapoya were natives, and the Chachapoya were blonde-haired, white-skinned, blue-eyed culture. Now we're not too far away, and I wanted to do some research in this area, and I had planned doing an expedition in this area when COVID hit. We were actually the day we got locked down was the day we were getting up to take off to head to Peru to start doing this research of that area. And I had my team, we were going to head down, and the border shut down. And so we never made that trip, right? It'd been interesting. I don't think we'd have gone that deep in the jungle to find these ruins, but I was suspect that there were ruins there because of these blonde, these light-skinned natives. Now that's Chachapoya. If anybody wants to go down and see that, it's Cuelap. They built high in the mountains. It's actually believed that they're the ones that built Machu Picchu. Once the Inca finally were able to conquer them, that's a whole other story that we talked about before. But we're going to go there for one of our tours as well. Very interesting. Not nearly as packed as Machu Picchu. People just don't go up in that northern high Amazon area, which is really interesting because you get dropped. Just Chachapoya itself just has so much to see of the history there. Anyway, so that's just a tour we would do, and that was something that to me it made complete sense when they found it, and I thought to myself, yep, we thought that. Now it's easy to come back and say that after the fact, right? I have my writings and so forth and our plans and our trips to prove that we were actually going to do that. It doesn't matter if people believe me or not. I don't care. The idea is we're going to get down there and do some research ourselves. I was hoping to get down there in March. We'll see how work's going. Right now it's slow, so I'm not so sure I can get away very long. And we want to do some stuff where we're going to go down and do some actual live feeds. I'm actually going to go into an area to show some of this migration and show how it's affecting the stakes. I was talking to a stake president in Ecuador, actually, and he was explaining to me how there is enough leaving a stake coming here to America because the door is open. That's what the word is there. It's a free pass. And I know many members that I actually live with in these native communities that are already here now. They just came through the border and they're here, right? They got processed and they're here. And we're going to go down. We're going to go and record some of this migration, and we're going to take some risks. And we're going to go we're going to talk to people. We're going to see why they're coming. There's a lot of things out there. And then so we can talk about what do we do about it now, right? And we take a Christian approach to it. But before we can take a Christian approach to it, we can't get all sentimental. We need to find out exactly who's coming, right? And break that down. So I want to go down there and show our listeners who's coming. Now, is this going to be a little bit risky for us? Well, there's one area in Panama, we're going to go into FARC territory and we're going to go into the Darien Gap. And how far we go into that Darien Gap, I'm not quite sure, but our idea is to try to hike it to a point where we can show. Hopefully, we'll see some caravans coming up through there. But unfortunately, a lot coming through the Darien Gap are not Latins. Some of the Venezuelans, yes, but you got a lot of Chinese, and you've got others coming up through that Darien Gap because they go into Ecuador first, right? But we're gonna do some interviews down there and talk to some people that I'm gonna talk to families that have sent their kids. Look, these kids that were here. Two of these kids were my seminary students when I was a seminary teacher, and they're here now, right? And now listen. I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.